quite a brash way of talking to people who are known to be international leaders in their field. And one of the questions I used to get was guy called Schulman, there's another one doing a presentation. And at the end of it, I would stand up in my leather jacket and I would ask the question. I'm really interested in the presentation, which I had been, but I couldn't see any evidence that anybody had learned anything significant. Okay, so that would be my question. It was a genuine one. It wasn't asked aggressively. It was asked from the perspective that I was fascinated about what educational influences in learning this person was telling me about in the American Education Research Association. And there was usually an embarrassed silence because these key researchers, who were so-called at the top of the field of education research, couldn't produce any evidence of this influence in learning of students. So I'm asking you quite a difficult question about what data do you need to make that judgment? Can you convince me? Yeah. Data is basically information that you gather. So you can gather an enormous range of data. You can do it through interviews, videos, questionnaires. What you have there is raw data. Now, when it becomes evidence, is when it is used within what is called a claim to knowledge. So if you say, I believed for these reasons that, and here's the data, that data has become evidence. It's like in a court of law. The evidence is from the massive data that is available on a case. Then evidence is produced for and against whether somebody is guilty or innocent. Now it's a very similar process here. That when you build in to your account, for example, in terms of pupils' learning, I was able to show about this inquiry learning process that some 14-year-olds had actually formed their own question, the evidence, and used it as evidence in the claim that inquiry learning was taking place. I could show these 14-year-olds undertaking a scientific experiment to actually test various plastics and what they did when subject to various chemicals. And it was clear that inquiry learning was taking place. Well, that was evidence that I was able to bring to substantiate my claim that it was. So you've got, with something that is evidence, you've got to have a claim to be able to know something. So in relation to your students or yourselves, you've actually got to say, literally, I believe this to be true. It becomes a claim to know when you feel that you know this is true, and here is sufficient evidence to back up your claim. But you draw the evidence from quite a large database, usually, that you've gathered. But that is a crucial distinction. It takes a bit of time to get the difference between the data gathering, which can be absolutely massive in terms of a database, and then you select what is going to count as evidence in your claim to know something. And what I'm asking is, what will count as evidence that, if you like, you've actually had an educational influence in the learning of the student? What can you bring? What might you bring? And if you can't, don't worry about it. Just think, well, what do I need to gather?